Hi, friends. Thank you for joining me today for yet another conversation related to the book Pieces of Purple that I released back in April. If you've been following along, you know that I release a new chapter in audio form once a month, and then a couple weeks later, I record a conversation with either adult TCKs or the parents of TCKs to cover some of the topics that were raised in that chapter. So if you haven't yet read or listened to that chapter, you can go to the show notes right now and click on the link that I'll leave there for you and go back and do your review or your first time through before we launch into this conversation. Josh and Alissa are two of my very favorite people. Josh is an MK. Alissa became multicultural when they got married and moved to Germany. And they happen to be the parents of three of my very favorite TCKs. Not that anybody plays favorites. So hang in there with us as we go through some of the themes of this chapter as we talk about how they prepared themselves and their children for their year-long stay back in what is their passport culture, the United States, and what were the sticking points, what were the challenges that they faced as adults and that they saw their children face at much younger ages. I hope you'll enjoy this conversation as much as I did. I hope you'll love them as much as I do. And here are Josh and Alissa. I promised you two of my favorite people, and they're here. It's Josh and Alissa. And I have known them. Josh, how long have I known you?
It would have been sophomore year of high school, so 2006,
Wow.
2007.
Wow.
That's a long relationship in an MK life. And I actually just recently found a picture of Josh and Alissa sitting on my couch when they were just dating. So we go back a long way too, Alissa.
Yeah.
Give us just kind of a bullet point overview of how you landed where you are today, and tell us as much as you can where you are today and what you're doing.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, yeah, so we're Josh and Alissa. I am the missionary kid. I married a monocultural person, which has worked out really great.
That's
Thanks
a
in
whole
part-
other conversation we need to
Yeah.
have at some
Yeah.
point.
That's
Thanks in
fun.
part to Michelle actually swooping in and out of our lives over the years, and just imparting so much wisdom. Yeah, we got married in 2014. No,
No, we did
2012.
not.
We had our first child in 2014.
Good catch.
I'm not
Way
the
to
one,
make up for
not
it.
the one for details and memories. And right from the moment we met, we knew that we were going to be on mission field. And so we actually went to Black Forest Academy, which is where Michelle, where you and I met. And I served in the communications department, running social media, and I was on a great team. We told stories about what God was doing in and through BFA and through the parents of the students. And in that time, I had a few kids, and had a great time, rubbing shoulders with the students. We were serving in the dorms. We volunteered for all the things. And that came to an end about a year and a half ago. And we repatriated back to America with our children. We had a fourth grader, a kindergartner, and a preschooler. And we sought the Lord on what his plan was for our lives as a family and what we were going to do next. Through a long, winding road, he's led us now to Thailand. We're serving here. We've been here since end of June of this year, 2025. And we're serving with an organization called Burma Rangers. And they do humanitarian aid and gospel ministry in conflict zones. So our thing is to go to the most unreachable places where the bullets are flying, the bombs are dropping, and bring Jesus and help and hope and love those people. And so mostly the work is done just across the border in Burma, or otherwise known as Myanmar. But we have teams in the Middle East, in East Africa, Ukraine, and various places, various conflict zones around the world. I love to make videos and take photos and design things. So that's kind of my ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked this whole time.
Yes, you did a good job.
One of the advantages of having lengthy relationships with people, such as knowing you, Josh, since you were a kid, is that I get to look back at the arc of what led you to where you are today. And when I knew you, as kind of a self-conscious, kind of scared of your own shadow, low self-esteem MK in high school, and to see you now doing this kind of work, I never would have imagined that this is
Totally.
where you would end up.
Yeah.
So the privilege of having seen that arc, and part of that arc is the woman you met and married, who is a force of nature on her own. So Alissa, a little bit about you.
I loved our time at BFA, like serving students, and I can really say that it taught me how to do ministry and how to love well. If you can love a teenager really well,
Yeah.
like in consistency and in showing up and in asking the right questions, then you can love anyone. You know, to really be the hands and feet of Jesus it's an honor.
It's so formative for them.
It's huge. I want them to be okay in the uncomfortable
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
So-
Well, speaking of uncomfortable, you came back, as you mentioned, for a year in the States. Now, you probably had slightly different experiences, I imagine, because Josh did it as a TCK, and you, Alissa, were coming home to the place where you grew up and entered your adulthood. And yet, I'm guessing that there were some expectations and maybe some dread in some areas that you carried into that process. So before we talk about how you prepared your kids for that transition and lived with them through their transitional pangs, we'll call it that, what was your experience each individually, your anticipation of coming back and your experience of landing here?
I think for me, I was excited to have language. Like I didn't learn German because we were working with internationals.
You learned some German. You still use it around the house when you're,
A little bit. When I'm scolding my children, I can
it's the
scold
best
in
language
German.
for scolding.
Yeah, it's so much fun. But I was excited to talk to people. Like I was really excited to do that. Like go to the grocery store and have them ask me, why am I buying corn? And me tell them the whole story. Like I was excited for that, but also a little scared because like I've grown a lot from when I left. I left as a mom of a 1.5-year-old, and we'd only been married for 4 years. So we were like babies. And then to go and have this whole other life. And there was very few people that really saw that other life.
Yeah.
So I was kind of scared, like, who do I need to be? And my expectations were to try to be present as much as possible with family, but also realizing that we can't just pick up right where we left off because there is nowhere to pick up. How do we make ourselves available, but also give ourselves space? And that there's just so much tension there.
And it's such a subtle kind of navigation that we have to do, because you said you grew a lot while you were overseas the first 8 years. But growth is change. And so you came back a slightly different person than you were when you left. And your parents didn't see the arc that I was just mentioning with Josh. They don't know where it came from, and it might be your relatives might wonder why it is that they're seeing different things in you, and it's not something you can sit down and explain to them because it happened organically over time. And even with your children, managing the differences between how you view the world and maybe how some of your relatives view the world.
Totally. Yeah. So much tension to just navigate in my own spirit, but then also in my kids.
And Josh?
Yeah, I mean, listening to you, Michelle, I love the in this chapter 3, because that's what we're talking about, right?
We are talking about chapter 3. Well done. I'm not your teacher anymore, but I'd give you bonus points. You know what? I'm going to pause you because I have to tell this story while it's still on the top of my brain. Not
Oh
that
yeah.
it has anything to do with chapter 3, but it's my favorite Josh story. So we're at BFA. He's in my choir class. We had 59 crazy people at the end of the day, every day of the week in choir. And I was at that phase of my life where women have private summers quite frequently, especially when they're waving their arms around and trying to keep 59 people under control. And Josh would see the signs, would see it happening to me, run out of the room to my office, get this huge fan, floor fan, come back, plug it in and aim it at me, and then go right back up to his seat in the choir loft. It was fantastic. I never had to worry about it. He was on task. I could use you still around here sometimes. But anyway, back to the book.
Oh, thankfully there's snow outside. Just open up your windows.
That's right. There's a lot of snow outside. I am just fine today.
So anyway,
Back to chapter 3.
Yeah.
I love these 6 reasons why it would be hard for a TCK to come back to their passport culture. And you're not a TCK, but you totally experience
Oh, totally.
this, like, being frustrated with your passport culture's knowledge about the world
Yeah.
and being frustrated with what are seemingly limitations.
Mhm.
I love how you just described it like we've grown up seeing red, but you can't blame a blind person for not knowing what red is. But we know what it is because we grew up seeing, right? And so it's watching Alissa, watching you grapple with living this life and coming back to friends and family and kind of grieving that they just haven't experienced red. And that gives you and me a lot of grace for
Mhm.
our community when we go back to America.
Totally.
And it's something that I just kind of learned as a kid, but having to actually do that as a couple and as a family and as adults, yeah, it doesn't click one day and you never have to grapple with it again. It's kind of like there's different seasons of
Yeah.
TCK-ness and struggling with it.
Yeah. And it's all grief.
Yeah.
We
It's
just
all
wanna be-
grief. Yes.
We just want to be seen and
Understood.
known and understood. And
Side note, I've been grieving Germany more having moved to Thailand than like last year when I was in the States after having moved from Germany. Yeah, not really wanting to have expectations so that I'm not disappointed. That's a big one. This doesn't have to do with this past year, but when I was in college and we were newly married, my big thing was fearing that I will live in America for forever now. Like I'm not actually going to ever leave again. The fear of permanence. That one is big for me.
That if you put down little baby roots, you might get stuck there forever. So you live in suspension a lot of times trying to avoid that.
Right.
totally.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think were, or did your kids express to you what their misgivings were, what their fears were when you were still in Germany and talking about coming back to the States? And by the way, it is so TCK to call the States America. We're
Oh,
going
yeah.
to America. The average American would say the States. So it's all our foreign languages that call it l'Amérique or whatever the version is in various countries. But what were your kids concerned about? Or were they concerned? Or did they just kind of leap?
I can't remember them being overly concerned.
Like we sent our kids to American public schools for a year. Which I went to public schools as a kid, so I was like, it's fine. You're good. And it was fine. It was a great school. It was a really good school. But the fear of like school shootings, like to be honest, like that was really big for me.
Yeah.
And wanting
And
to
for
like
your oldest too, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly, right? Your oldest
Yeah.
was aware of that.
Yeah. And how do I, and like, there's this balance and tension of like, how do I make my kids aware of things so that they're not shocked, but also protect and not give too much. So
Yeah.
I also taught my child all of the swear words to prepare him for public schools, but didn't tell him not to use the words. So he had a bunch of students over and he's just saying the F-bomb at the TV. And I'm just like,
Oh no.
Oh no.
So you taught him the swear words so he would be aware, but you didn't tell him not.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like, I think I was like, these are swear words.
Yeah.
You might hear these in school.
Yes. Which actually is important because
Yeah.
a lot of kids who grow up in a place like BFA, Black Forest Academy, where people generally watch their language,
Yeah.
they might not know. In fact, I remember going in when I was growing up, my parents took us to see a movie in Paris, and 5 minutes in, they dragged us down the aisle and back out of the theater. And apparently every other word was a swear word, but I had no idea because I didn't know
Okay.
what the words were. I thought it was a fairly
Totally.
good movie.
Yeah.
So it's
Totally.
important to teach them those things
Yeah.
and to put some barriers around them.
And to make sure you're teaching the whole story before you're educating the whole room.
Yes. Did they have any other kind of cultural faux pas in their year here?
Yes. Yeah, I know what you're getting
Do
at.
tell.
Okay. So my kids grew up in Germany, and German society has done a really good job at avoiding any type of like anti-Semitism,
Mhm.
or they're very tolerant and very welcoming of all cultures and backgrounds. I think they've swung pretty far from the ultra conservatism of the first half of the century, and so
And there have been some glitches in their history too, in their recent
definitely,
history where they got overwhelmed and didn't know what to do, but then the Germanic spirit comes
definitely,
back and
Yeah.
gets organized and
Yep.
yes,
We need a
right.
plan. We're going to
that's
stick to the
right.
plan.
And one thing,
Great plan.
that as Alissa mentioned before, my kids never had to worry about intruders in the school or school shootings or
Yeah.
any type of hate speech or violence.
Mm-mm.
And so our 11-year-old had made this comment jokingly during lunch one time. He said, "I have a spork and I know how to use it."
A spork.
Sport.
And apparently then a student told a teacher, which got Judah straight into the principal's office,
Oh my goodness.
as if he was threatening a student. So that was one where he just came home totally confused. Why was he
Yeah.
even in trouble?
Yeah. And figuring out, like, because he is a white boy, there are things that he can't say, but there are words and things that the other boys in his class that don't look like him can say, and it's no big deal.
Why can they say it and I can't?
Yeah.
So confusing.
It was,
So confusing.
yeah, there were
Yeah.
things that we just
Yeah.
didn't prepare ourselves
No.
for. It surprised us
Yeah.
that in
Yeah.
4th grade that he was, navigating these really like heavy baggage.
And nuanced too, right? It's heavy baggage and it's so nuanced.
You have to have generations of like learning to come to this point of what's taboo and what's not.
Wow. And what was their experience with making relationships here? Especially the boys, because the youngest was only 4, so they just played.
Yeah.
But the older two.
Our kindergartner, he had just come from German kindergarten where he grew up in our home speaking English, went to German kindergarten, was just playing. He actually learned quite a bit while he was there.
Yeah.
But once he got to the States and everybody spoke English and his teacher spoke English, it was like Disneyland. So he had a great year.
He
Made
loved
tons
it.
of friends.
Loved it.
Went to all the birthday parties
Every birthday party.
and
It was a little much.
just had a blast. Loved his teacher, loved his friends. Our 4th grader, we just talked about all of the like taboo topics and terms. But on top of that, he didn't grow up with screens and video games. And apparently his friend group, that's how they structured their social lives. And so they would all meet up online after school, and that's how they would have community. And so he felt like an outsider because of that. And we were talking to him about that this evening, and he was like, "Well, Mom and Dad, you didn't do anything about it." And we were like, "Actually, though, what did you do after school?" And he's like, "Well, I played with all the neighborhood kids outside in the basketball court." I was like,
Yeah.
"That's what we did about it." And it just so happens that all those kids out there were also missionary kids, the ones that were playing outside.
Yeah.
So it's,
Climbing things, making things, throwing things.
Yeah. Making fires.
yeah.
He told me the other day, he's like, man, I wish we could just make a fire. I miss making fire.
Oh.
Like, oh my goodness. Yikes.
And I remember one day he found an old skateboard somewhere and this big project of refurbishing the skateboard. He took the wheels off one and put it on another. And just that creativity that I think is a hallmark of TCKs, because they might not have all of the high-tech gadget toys, things to play with in their growing up places. That kind of, they carry the entertainment within them and find a way to create it around them.
Yeah. He loves to have a little project he's working on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Taking my children back to the States, I didn't want them to just decide that Americans are materialistic, they're closed-minded, they're not cultured, and they don't. So you talk about those things. Just that, like, if we were moving to America or if we were moving to Japan, we're going to approach it the same way. We're going to be open-minded. We're going to try to learn, fortunately, we're having to learn another language, but we're going to try to learn about the place that we're moving to. We're going to explore it. We're going to appreciate it. We're going to celebrate when they celebrate.
It's so important to approach it with a sense of adventure, which they would have in a lot of foreign countries, but tend not to have when it comes to returning to their passport culture, whether it's for a year or for longer than that. So the sense of adventure also engages their transitional skills, which they innately have as TCKs, even at young ages. But a lot of times, and this was my experience, I did not want to engage my transitional skills because I came back with a kind of a ready-made conclusion about who these people were. And I missed out on so much good because of the attitude at age 18 that I came back with. So teaching your kids at their ages to be prepared for things that don't make sense, and then to have conversations with them, to try and make sense of them culturally and historically, and then to help them see the great stuff that's happening too. So what was some of the great stuff that you introduced your kids to when they were here that they really liked?
Yeah, I think it was...
I can tell you one thing. I said, hey, I used to pick up Genevieve after school like once a week. And I said, you want to go to Dairy Queen? She had no idea who Dairy Queen, who Dairy Queen was. Princess Dairy? I don't understand. So some of that stuff that's so just, everybody in America knows what a Dairy Queen is. But for them, it was an adventure, a discovery.
Yeah, definitely. All the treats, all the stores and businesses and entertainment things that, you don't have access to anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
I dragged them into Chicago in every season because I was like, I love it. It's the big city, and it's so big, and the grime, and the smells, and the people, and the hustle and bustle, and I'm just like, and while my
all
kids
the reasons I don't drag myself
so
into
loud.
Chicago. Yes, and I think it's important if there's a narrative about the United States out there that they might have heard in their foreign lands, to kind of counter that narrative with, and this on a national level, Chicago has a really bad rap for being this dangerous, dirty city, but there are parts of Chicago that are absolutely stunning and that people come from all over the world to and feel totally safe in. So also helping to diffuse some of the generalizations about this country and places in this country that they might have bought into when they were overseas, because they just didn't know that there was an alternate reality to that.
Totally.
Yeah. How did you prepare on the Germany side for this transition practically? You did some things to make that transition less toxic or less traumatic that other families might be able to learn from. I'm thinking in terms especially of where you lived for the last few weeks that you were there.
Yeah. We moved out of our house a good 3 weeks before we left. And I think that was super helpful.
And why did you do that? What was the rationale?
Yeah, we just envisioned the stress of moving, just taking over, the process of saying goodbye to, if it's not locations, it's people.
Yeah.
And so we got to do that in our own time, we still felt rushed, even though
Totally.
Of
we
course.
tried to get out
Yeah.
ahead of it. But we
Yeah.
totally handed over the keys and we're out of our house. We were living with friends. We actually moved to a location that was closer to where all of our community lived. And so it was amazing. One thing we did was we all picked like 5 or 6 little stones and we painted them different things. Everybody painted their own little stones. Did you want to tell this story?
No, go ahead.
And we all decided where we were going to place these stones. And it took us like an entire day of
The
driving around.
whole day.
We actually, at one point,
So you painted the stones, and then as a family, and they decided where they want, there are 5 stones, where they wanted
Yes.
to put the stones, and you drove around and found these places where they could leave kind of a stone of remembrance.
Yeah, and we said goodbye. Like,
Yeah.
it was
And
like
said
the
goodbye to the
second to
place.
last day
Yeah.
that we were there.
We all got in the car and we would drive to a place and be like, who wanted to go here? Oh, yeah, Judah. Do you want to say goodbye to the Condren pool? We loved going to that pool. So he got out and found a little spot next to the fence and put it there,
Oh.
got back in the car.
Yeah.
And then we did that. I actually hiked up to the monument above the town and left my stone there. And yeah,
What a great idea. What a
it was
concrete
really
way
good.
of marking the moment.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. It
And
was-
I just think it's so brilliant that you gave yourselves those 3 weeks. Of course, there was still stuff you were trying to figure out, plane tickets, whatever, but that you gave yourselves those 3 weeks of less packing. That was already done, so that you could really focus not only on how you wanted to say goodbye, but on how each of you was experiencing the goodbye.
Yeah.
And if we don't have that extra bandwidth before a huge transition, sometimes we start to process it later, and sometimes it never gets processed. So that gift that you gave your kids to have that time, and then these creative ways of marking the places that mattered to them, it would almost be fun if you ever go back to see if those stones are still there, to drive around and see if you can find those painted
sure.
stones.
Yeah.
That was
totally.
brilliant. I love that
Yeah.
you did that.
Yeah.
It was, I kind of thought because we prepared so well and we each I had the kids see the school counselor like in February and like we moved in June. I kind of went a little overboard thinking like this transition is going to be great.
Mhm.
We've done everything right. Sweet. This is going to be super fun. No. It's still hard. There's still going to be chaos. There's still going to be the whole family in bed sobbing and wailing, crying because it's grief and it's goodbyes and it's heavy. But all those little pieces help.
Was that whole family in bed moment, was that just a couple of days before you left, or where did those feelings start to manifest?
Those were in Wheaton. Like those were
after we
when
got
you were already here.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's when the reality strikes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we've had moments like that here, as you don't realize everything that you've lost until you start to rebuild.
Yeah.
And as we have rebuilt this home, it's hard. Like, oh, remember in Germany this, and I'll remember in Germany that. And like, okay, we can have the sad and we can be excited. Like, being open to those conversations with our kids and in ourselves, like when we feel that, speaking it out so that our kids see that, oh, we're struggling with this too. And we're so thankful that we're here. And it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Josh.
No, I was just going to say what she just said about speaking it out. Whenever I remember to, because I'm an internal processor, so a lot of things fly through my head, but whenever I'm missing Germany, I'll speak it out for kids. Just like, do you guys remember that? And try to just keep it not a bottled up conversation, or a bottled up, feeling, but an open conversation. And the times I can remember, the times when my parents were open and honest about their transition when I was a kid. And I was just like, I just want to do more of that. Because those are the really helpful moments.
And even the exciting transitions to exotic places, even those hold grief. There is no transition without grief because you're constantly leaving something in the previous place. So it normalizes talking about the hard stuff to hear parents say what they say. And I think there were generations before you guys that thought they were helping their kids by not talking about the hard stuff.
Yeah.
They thought that bringing it up would start something in their children, but it's already there in their children.
Yeah,
It just gives
totally.
them an outlet to speak of it
Yeah.
when the parents bring it up first. Any other wisdom about transitioning that you've gained in the last few months? I mean, really, it's been a year and a half of transitioning, right? The
Yeah, it's
States,
been
that
long.
whole year was transitioning.
Yeah,
And then moving to Thailand, which is a whole different culture from Germany, needless to say.
totally different.
What else have you learned that helped your children in those transitions?
Yeah. We use the word gray a lot.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's very gray here. And there's not, in Germany, it felt very black and white.
yeah.
Like, this is right and this is wrong, and this is the correct way to
And
do
you're not talking about the weather being gray. You're
No,
talking
no.
about
Like,
concepts.
Yes, concept. Yes. Yes. So in
Traffic-
Germany,
traffic
there
laws.
were 2 lanes for the highway, and you would only drive in those 2 lanes. And here, there's 2 lanes, but you can use the shoulder. So actually, there's 4. So we
That's just an example.
yeah, just an example. But we use the word gray a lot. And when there's frustrations, like, this was so unsafe, and I'm like, well, it's kind of gray.
Mm.
And then allowing them to explore that and talk about that. And it's not right and wrong. And it's just gray.
Different.
Yeah, that's definitely, our transition has gone from one of the coldest cultural places to one of the warmest cultural places. Very extreme differences in terms of just the lifestyle of the people and the mindset.
Mhm.
We were talking about, what I've learned about transition. I think it's transition, but it's definitely the grief side of transition. Not feeling guilty, feeling how you're feeling. Like, if it's a year and a half now and I'm still missing Germany, I shouldn't be frustrated about that. And allowing the state of your mentality and your heart to be just where it is in the moment.
Yeah.
That allows you to have grace for each other too, and grace for yourself.
I left Germany 15 years ago, and for those who don't know, Black Forest is 20 minutes from France, which is where I grew up. So there are still things 15 years later that kind of catch me off guard, and I realize, I'm still on a visceral level. I'm still realizing that I don't have that anymore. And I think it'll keep coming at different phases of life. We'll be reminded of these things, and I've made my peace with it because it reminds me of the wonderful and how special it was for me to be able to live in those spaces and experience the German Christmas markets. I mean, that kind of thing. The griefs can point us towards gratitude if we allow it to take the shape it needs to take whenever it is that it bubbles up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Is there anything in this conversation that we have not gotten to that you wanted to get to?
I think there's one thing that's just been sticking out, which I know, Michelle, we've talked about. I forget sometime in our friendship, but it really came out this year as we are changing jobs and really making God not our employer. Like really being so careful to not say, well, God led us here and this is where God wants us to be. Like just be
Even though those things are true.
Even though those things are true, but being so careful about how we share the love of God to our kids in this transition.
Using words, this is what we've talked about, using words that don't blame God for the hard stuff.
Totally.
That don't say God wanted us to suffer.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a hard distinction to
Yeah.
make when you do, in fact, work for God.
Yeah.
But He is a good and compassionate and loving and caring God who
Totally.
doesn't delight in our transitional angst.
No.
Yeah. God has invited us here to share the love that we have with other people. God's invited us to, on this adventure. Is it going to be hard? Is it going to be scary? Yeah, but He's going to be with us. And not, quoting like, in this world, you will have trouble. whenever we're frustrated that we don't know how to figure out the ATM or whatever.
Yes.
Or we get our
The
debit card
ATM brings out in this world you will have trouble. That's perfect. For me, it's the cereal aisle.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Yeah.
The final question is, do you have any final words of encouragement to anybody who's listening, whether they're parents of MKs or TCKs themselves? What would be your parting words?
I guess I would just kind of reiterate the allowing yourself to grieve wherever you're at and whatever you're struggling with. You don't have to feel frustrated that you're not something else or you're not feeling a different way.
Yeah.
And even though you've transitioned 70 times, you can't be frustrated yourself. Like, why am I dealing with these difficult emotions or this frustration again? Like, I should be a pro at this. I think sometimes TCKs, MKs take pride in being able to be multicultural, being able to navigate, but actually it's hard every time that you transition. And you can be honest with that. It might be harder in ways for you than it would be for somebody who moves for the first time. But it's still hard every time, just in different ways. And so,
And I think there's a balance to be found in predicting that it will be hard in some ways, especially if we've done it before and we've experienced it to be hard, and in telling ourselves, but what can I do to make it a little bit easier?
Yeah.
So not just focusing on the hard when you're in a new place, but looking outward, looking for that sense of adventure and discovery. Because sometimes when we come back to our passport culture, we feel like this should be an easy one. And if we don't feel like that, we know people around us do. This should be an easy transition. You hold the passports for this place. And it's not going to be any easier than any other transition. And the pressure might actually make it harder than other transitions because we're supposed to be just jumping back in and we can't because this isn't actually home. So teaching our children, teaching ourselves in our own minds to apply our cross-cultural skills that we would deploy in any other place where we landed. You certainly did in Thailand. You probably still are in Thailand using your cross-cultural transitional skills. But a lot of times we don't even think of that in this place that is supposed to be home. So what you've outlined is so dead on that, yes, we need to acknowledge and live in the tensions of transition, and we need to remember what our skills are and employ them, put them to work for us in however long this transition is going to be. And person to person, as you said, Josh, it's going to be different. Some kids just bounce right back off the ground when the plane lands and they're good to go. And others will take months, maybe even years. I've certainly spoken to families whose kids have taken years to get through it. And Alissa, I love that you also said that in February, before you left Germany, you already had your kids talking to the school counselor. Sometimes MKs, TCKs will try to hide the hard from their parents because they know they're transitioning too, and they see the difficulty in their parents. So a third party that is safe can help them to put words to something if they're trying to shield their parents from what that something is. And it can be a counselor, it can be somebody in the community that your kids are close with, an adult that you trust, but that can be really helpful too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Anything else?
Read Pondering Purple.
Read Pondering Purple. Okay, I'm okay with
Go to
that.
a reentry retreat.
Yes.
Yes, reentry retreat, so
Debriefing.
important.
Debriefing.
Family debriefing.
Oh,
We didn't talk about this.
amazing.
That was,
Where did you do it and why was it important?
we went to Mission Training International and in Colorado. The curriculum and the time we had as adults was amazing. But what blew my mind was the programs they had for our kids, age specific. Oh man, it was amazing. Actually, we should have talked about this a lot more, Michelle. But
It was happening. We use like all of that language that they learned. We use that like on a daily basis.
it gave our kids tools, like verbal and mental tools to process things, and it gave our family language so that our conversations could be open and authentic. I can't speak highly enough about that experience.
Yeah.
And yet it costs a lot of money, and that is often the sticking point for people. So what would you say about that aspect of it? And MTI is the gold standard. They're just wonderful. One of their career workers is Sandy Smith, who actually gave me the title of my book because she developed this analogy of beads and Play-Doh, and I'll leave it there because people have to buy their own book to find out what it is. But that came from MTI too, and they're very practical, clear in what they project. So what would you say to families who are hesitating because it costs a lot of money?
It's a priceless investment. I mean, we were blessed. I think advocating for yourself, advocating
This is
for your
why we
family.
need it. This is why my kids need it.
I would encourage any mission leaders who might be listening to consider offering this to your missionaries, especially those who are leaving the field for good, but even those who are in transition, or even those who are going back to the same place. If missions can start funding this, like reentry retreats for MKs, so important. And but planning for the financial output, because the input, the wisdom that you and your children gain, and the common vocabulary across family members is so important. I mean, I think that's probably in part why you're able to speak of your grief and your transition with your children, is that you went through that program together, and so you understand the importance of it and the vocabulary for it.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you brought that up. We don't have to do transition alone. And you can read all you want in books and articles about transition, but having face-to-face sounding boards who have much more experience and wisdom than we do, that can't be found in the pages of a book. I am so thrilled that you could be on with me today, that I got to see your faces after you left in June. I haven't seen you since then. And I want to affirm, and I have said this to so many people in my life, that in my opinion, you are two of the most magical parents that I have ever seen. And I've seen the not so controlled sides of things too. But you are so attuned to your kids and so determined to be attuned to your kids. And I see in them an attunement to themselves that would not be possible without what you have demonstrated to them. So thank you for being that gold standard in all its flawed beauty. I appreciate what I've learned from you.
Well, we wouldn't have understood each other and been equipped to raise MKs if you were not in our lives.
Yeah, totally.
And so, your investment in us, Michelle, is just playing out through generations now. So we're very grateful for your influence in our lives. Your book was sitting on our counter tonight, and Genevieve, our 4-year-old, comes in. I didn't tell her about this at all, but she recognized it. She went, "I want to find my name," and she turned and she found her name right here.
It's dedicated to the 3 kiddos. For those of you who don't know, the dedication is to those 3 who made me Aunt Fifi, and I love being Aunt Fifi to them.
So they definitely carry you as their Aunt Fifi in their hearts, and
Love it.
and you're a huge part of our lives, and have had a huge impact in our kids' lives. So thank you.
Yeah, your legacy is
been an honor.
being passed on. Yeah.
Yay. Okay. I love you all. Give my love to the kiddos in whatever form they want. High five, fist bump, or hug. I know that those are the 3 options. And hopefully I'll get out to Thailand sometime this year to visit you in your new digs.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being on today, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Michelle. Love you.